Enjoy this Wild Soul Gathering production. I'm Dr. Sandra Marie. Pour yourself a really tall glass of spiritual curiosity and join me for the Happy Hour for the Spiritually Curious podcast. In the spirit of happy hour, cheers to some new insights, peace, revitalization, and perhaps an aha moment that may change your life. Hi, Dr. Sandra Marie here. Today we're exploring something that sits right at the edge of curiosity and skepticism. What does it actually mean to receive guidance from something beyond yourself? My guest, Sue Elliott, spent over 30 years as a magazine editor and a writer before her life took a very different turn. She began receiving messages she describes as coming from angels, which led to 2 decades of coaching others using that guidance. Now she's brought that work into her book, My Angel Coach, designed to help people access insight, emotional clarity, and a sense of support in their everyday lives. Welcome to the show, Sue.
Thank you for inviting me.
Let's start here and then we'll get a little more into your journey. When someone hears receiving messages from angels, what do you think they're actually responding to, and what might they be misunderstanding?
Well, we're all receiving messages from angels all the time. We all have
Okay.
legions of angels. They're with us. They're helping. When we actually explicitly ask or give them permission, then they can do a lot more because we are on a free will planet. They're not going to change our destiny or interfere with our lives, but they are always there going, your keys are over here when you're running around looking for your keys. I don't distinguish different flavors of angels. To me, they're all aspects of the divine. And they work through people too. So we talk about earth angels, like we say this stuff really regularly. And the
Mhm.
angels will communicate to me through you. They'll deliver a message from the people standing behind me at the grocery store. Like they are always bringing us what we are asking for, even if we're not consciously asking.
So that would be the big piece that people misunderstand, I think, a lot of times, is that the messages are there, but we aren't conscious of them, or we attribute them to coincidences.
Right. We really just need to practice. It's just a
Okay.
matter of noticing, maybe making a list if that feels good to you of like angel evidence or miracles in my own life or whatever you want to call it. Synchronicities, great coincidences. They don't care what you call it. They don't need credit. They just want us to notice those first lyrics that come on when you turn on the radio or turn on a music app, or that billboard that had the answer to your question. Or my favorite is one time I had this really active question in my space and I got onto a train and I was like the last person on. Somebody actually yanked me on, so I made it before the door shut. And there was one seat open, so I sat in that seat, and the person sitting next to me had the answers to my questions. And the angels will do that kind of thing for us all the time.
I love that. So it's really just being aware and paying attention. Let's talk about your journey a little bit. You had a long, successful career in publishing before this shift. What specifically happened that made you trust what you were hearing enough to change that direction? Because that's a pretty big change.
And I was in the midst of it. Well, so it was kind of a dance with my spirituality. When I was in the 90s, I was in my 20s. I discovered Marianne Williamson and her book, A Return to Love. And I used to work at Peterson Publishing Company. So they started Hot Rod Magazine, Motor Trend. They were like the first automotive publisher. I was a car magazine editor for over 20 years.
Wow.
And Marianne Williamson used to speak at the Wilshire Theater, which was like a few blocks away from our office. 3 of us would go walk there after work and listen to her speak. And then I decided to marry somebody and I went back to the real world and I kind of stepped away from that path for a while. And then at one point, I started doing food and wine magazines. So I stepped away from doing the automotive and I was in the middle of writing books for Ed Begley Jr. Actually, I ghost wrote 2 books for him that were more in the environmental space. And then I
That
was
would make
standing there.
sense.
Yeah. And then I bumped into one of my dear friends in publishing who said, Sue Elliott, you're exactly who we need, because they were actually talking about doing a magazine with Guy Fieri, the diners, drive-ins, and dives guy who's on he has other shows
Yeah.
also. They wanted somebody who could write about food, but who could also write about muscle cars because he has a car collection. And I think I was the only person on the planet who
I
wrote
was
about.
gonna say
So I was in talks to do that, and then that never happened, but I ended up doing food magazines for them. I was doing that when the guy who was in charge of business development for the newsstand said, "What's that crazy thing you want to do?" And I said, "Law of Attraction magazine." And he said, "Yeah." As I was doing the food magazines, I also started doing a personal transformation magazine. And that was actually after I started hearing the angels. Now that I look back, I started hearing the angels while I was a spokesperson for the automotive aftermarket. And now I'm kind of a spokesperson for the angels. I believe that we're all on divinely guided journeys. It may not look linear, but we're gathering all the skills and experiences we need to do what we're here to do.
yeah,
And
there's too much is put into the linear. I don't think that linear is disappearing anyways, but not
yeah,
much is linear, and it's not meant to be linear.
I don't know very many people who had a linear journey. I mean, I know a couple people who worked at one place for 30 years, but almost everybody else I know feels like they bounced around a lot. And we have some sort of judgment on that. Maybe because it
Mhm.
doesn't look good on a resume. I believe that it's all so perfect. And for many of us, we're generalists. We're interested in lots of different things. And there's nothing wrong with exploring all that.
Absolutely, and honestly, for the people who've been at one place for 30 years, and I think some of that was just generational, this is how you do it, that was passed down. I'm gonna guess the rest of their life wasn't that linear. When
Good point.
when you first started receiving messages, how did you, like, distinguish them between intuition, imagination, and what you describe as angelic guidance? Can you just talk a little bit about that? Was that "Oh, whoa, what was that? What's happening?" Or
It was a lot like, la, 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 I can't hear you. Go away. Leave me alone.
okay.
Because I was in the middle of conversation with someone, well, actually a whole group of ladies, and I got this message for one woman I hardly knew, and they said, "Tell her never to say that again." She had just said, "I can't afford something," and they would not shut up. They just kept saying, "Tell her never to say that again." I mean, I couldn't participate in the conversation anymore. All I could hear was all this in my head, and it didn't feel, I mean, I make it sound funny, like it was nudgy, but it felt very warm and nurturing. Not tell her never to say that again in like a critical or judgmental way, but just please, please stop her from doing this thing that she does that's getting in her way.
Mhm.
So the energy of it was very loving, very nurturing, and they were also very insistent.
So how did that go when you said that to her, or didn't you?
I did. I did because I really wanted to rejoin the conversation. And until I
Okay.
did delivered the message, the messengers were not going to stop.
Okay.
So I told her, she looked at me kind of weird and
I
nodded and said, okay. It was my first message. So I'm sure it
yeah.
wasn't the most elegant delivery. I
Well,
probably said, I don't know who wants to say this, but I hear this thing and I'm supposed to
yeah,
tell you.
I
So.
can imagine. And I can imagine that you probably tried to get out of it, but that wasn't happening. So, Sue, I'm curious about the concept of angel attunements. This feels really unique to me. What
Oh,
is
thank you.
actually happening during an angel attunement from your perspective?
Well, we'll back up just a half a step and say, Dr.
Yeah,
Bruce Lipton has talked a lot about subconscious programming and
right.
how during the first about 7 years of life, we come in and we're just wide open. We take everything in as the rules to live by. And we make rules for ourselves, right? Something that made sense when we were 2 or 4 becomes subconscious programming that's still operating in the background when we're 40 or 60 or however old we get to before we're like, okay, why is it that when I do the work in this area, life changes and everything becomes magic and miracles. But I do the work in this area over and over, and I still end up in that same space. And it's that subconscious programming that determines what we can or cannot do. So the angels are incredibly good at dissolving that. They come in, they know what's in the way of our flourishing. We don't have to find the moment we got that belief. We don't have to find the exact belief. We can literally say, angels, clear all the stuff that is not my original factory settings, that is not how I came into this world as I was created by the divine. Get rid of all the gunk, and they will do that. But we also have in our book all of these fun angel attunements. All those 30 years of being a magazine editor led me to do this with the angels, where we would choose an image and some words, and then the angels would infuse it with the energy that would dissolve limiting beliefs, subconscious programming, any kind of trauma that's getting in the way in that part of our lives. So, shame, guilt, blame stuff that we've
It's
experienced.
big stuff, the big
Yeah.
stuff.
Big stuff, and the angels do it for you. So, one of the things that makes that book a little different from typical self-help books is it's not 100% do it yourself, but the angels actually dive in and do a lot of the work for us.
That does pique my curiosity, but if you're a person coming from maybe a more grounded background, how would you explain that or talk about that to someone?
Well, we have all kinds of support available to us, and it doesn't
Mhm.
really matter whether you wanna call it angels or the universe or nature or source. To me, it's all on some level, it's semantics, right? It's all aspects of the divine is what I like to call. Some people say God, some people have other names. I guess the only thing that you would have to believe is that there is some sort of benevolent force out there that loves us. And you could call it love. In fact, we love, and the angels love it when you refer to the divine as love, because the divine is unconditional love.
Right. We've talked about the unconditional beliefs, the things that we're unconscious of. I mean, I think it goes back honestly to when you're in the womb sometimes, and even ancestral. We bring a lot of that stuff with us. We're driven by things that we're so unaware of with
Yes,
that.
it's the water we're swimming in as fish. We think everybody believes that because it's so pervasive.
And then you bring up the other topics of the shame and the guilt and the other things that drive us. And sometimes we have these feelings that we don't even put the label to. We might label it one thing and then realize, oh my God, this is shame because we had a different view of what shame is. With that, the angels come in, they dissolve it, they do their thing. Do we even need to be aware that a lot of that stuff was there? Or it's like, thank you, I feel different in every ounce of my being, and I'm just moving down the path.
What the angels have been saying lately, so you're right on the my learning edge. If there's something that it would be beneficial for us to know, to get the aha or the insight or the awareness, they will share it with us. But
Okay,
for the most part, they could just take it out of our space, and we really don't need to excavate it, examine it, become
I'm
intimate.
good with that.
Yeah, like, "Here, take it all."
Well, so because we have this $10 billion spiritual industry that's out there, and a lot of times it feels like people actually take advantage or they make money off of keeping people in these healing loops or the fixing kinds of stuff. So I'm loving what you're saying that we could either be aware or not aware of it, but we don't have to keep going through all of this. Like
Right.
it can just be either one and done or let me give you a little like connect the dots with it so that you can understand this more because it's going to affect other parts of your life. But you don't need to keep taking different classes or following different people to keep fixing, fixing, fixing.
Right. The angels would love for us to let go of that fixing
Yeah,
model because it's more
me too.
remembering who we really are and
Yes,
letting go of all the stuff that's not authentically us. And you can be authentically having a tantrum in Walmart, doing a little 3-year-old version of yourself. You can be authentically freaking out in a meeting. There are many aspects of us that are authentic.
right.
They say it that way, they mean the truth of who we are built as a unique aspect of the divine in order for the divine to experience what it's like to be Sue and what it's like to be Sandra, which is super cool. I love knowing that about life.
And that is actually super cool that the divine that we work together as one to learn, reflect, and mirror that. You used the word love a little bit ago, and I wanna go a little deeper in that. You reflected as the divine is love. You encourage people to love their emotions instead of trying to fix or push them away. What
Yeah.
begins to change when someone actually does that? What does that look like?
Wow. I'm so glad you asked that because I'm getting wave after wave of goosebumps, which in my experience is the angels so excited, jumping up and down. Like I had said, I come from a law of attraction background. So I come from a background of teaching people to be positive and
Right.
to pivot and to move up the vibrational scale and all that good stuff. And toward the end of doing the magazine, it started to feel like something was off there. And the angels were saying, we've been given all these emotions for a reason. They're not wrong. They're actually aspects of ourselves who feel that way. So when we're trying not to feel anxiety or sadness or anger, we're trying to cut off and shove away, reject a part of ourselves. So the angels encourage us to treat each emotion as a messenger. And I like to think of them as little cartoon characters, like in the movie Inside Out. So anger shows up and he just has something he wants to tell me. So I say, "Hi, Anger, what's going on? What would you like me to know?" And Anger's like, "Well, that wasn't fair. She shouldn't have done that. And that was wrong. And no. He delivers his rant. And I say, "Thank you. That's really good to know." Like Anger feels seen and heard, or the part of me who feels angry feels seen and heard and appreciated and respected. And then Anger can go back to the sandbox to play with all the other emotions till he has a message to deliver. And I can take that valuable message and journal about it, have a dialogue with other aspects of myself, because there may be a part of me who's really sad that that person did that thing. And there may be another part of me who's kind of glad that that person did that thing. So as I start to treat my emotions as something that's worth hearing, not wrong, not bad, I begin to love and accept back in the parts of myself who have been hiding or feeling shamed or unwelcome. And so it's the kindest, most loving approach that I can be for myself.
Okay, so let's dive into this a little more because emotions are very much a part of the human experience. They're part of being human, but they're very much villainized. And I think that all emotions, for the most part, are very much villainized. Your thoughts on why people struggle so much with allowing emotions?
Ooh, well, for starters, almost every family of origin that we've come across forbid at least one emotion. So
Fair
maybe
enough.
it was, no sadness, big boys don't cry, stiff upper lip, get it, push through. Or maybe it was anger, right? Maybe you needed anger management or you had to go to your room. And some families didn't want any emotion. There were
Correct.
families that didn't want you to be happy because mom and dad had such a rough time at work or in life. Your joy was just annoying to them, painful. That's one of the reasons. And that's why some emotions can have almost a primal fear attached to them. Because when we're that little person, we need our parents to take care of us. We need them to feed us and house us and get us to school and all the things. So those emotions can be really triggering when we start to feel them. And the angels can, of course, help to dissolve all of that. And if there's something that we need to know, they will show us. So the angels want to say that emotions have been suppressed for the most part in most cultures because they are perceived as feminine.
Oh,
Women were hospitalized for hysteria, which meant, having
yeah.
intense emotion, not liking what they were told to do by other people who were men. So the angels want to say that part of this practice is about allowing our feminine and masculine aspects, and we all have them,
Right.
to come into harmony. So our emotions are very strong indicators of trauma and of calling us forward. The angels will deliver our guidance sometimes in a way that feels like energy calling us forward, and that energy might be eagerness or excitement or curiosity. They encourage us to see, acknowledge, value our emotions because they're such a big part of our guidance system.
This is great. I have not had anyone before really give the value to emotions that you have assigned to them and how you've explained everything and how it's all interrelated. Again, a big part of this human experience and drives a lot of behavior, positive, negative kinds of things, as well as the conditioning that comes with it. So again, it's a lot of what drives the emotions, those inherited belief systems that
Yeah.
interplay. I love that you talk about how valuable they are in shaping our growth and our learning. In your experience, is there one emotion people consistently misunderstand or avoid that you have seen more often than the others? I think everyone throws anger out there. I love that you also talked about the joy and the love. People are very resistant to that also. I agree, a lot of that has been forbidden. So it's not just the go-to ones that you could blow off the top of your head, but I'll let you answer the question.
Oh gosh. The one that they're nudging me towards is vulnerability. So,
Ooh.
not to go, well, we'll go into the Brene Brown territory for a minute, but vulnerability is potency, right? It
Mhm.
is living in the question. Vulnerability is that I don't know. Now, sometimes vulnerability feels more like physical, more physical than emotional. So they want to distinguish those things, right? Because if you are physically vulnerable, that's a whole other thing. But there are a lot of us who have armored up to the point that we don't want to experience vulnerability in our romantic relationships, let alone in the workplace. So the angels are urging us to dance and play with vulnerability, to start to have a dialogue. And it could look like journaling. It could look like, sometimes I'll journal and I say me, colon, and I'll write what I have to say. And then I'll say vulnerability, colon, and let vulnerability answer. And you can have a dialogue with that, with vulnerability, with the angels, with anybody you want. Exactly the way the Conversations with God books were birthed years ago. So the angels want to encourage us to do that in a journal, talking out loud, whatever works for you.
Well, it's sort of interesting because vulnerability has made it to the top in more recent times. Obviously, Brene Brown has written some great material and books on vulnerability. You talk about it with relationships, and I think historically we talk a lot about it personally with safety. But one of the things I find fascinating is they've actually taken it into the boardroom,
Yes.
with your CEOs and a lot of those male dominant areas. Not to minimize the vulnerability with women, because I think a lot of that becomes assumed
Uh,
with it, but it becomes assumed in a more negative connotation. But it's interesting that it's making it into industry and into boardrooms. What are your thoughts on that?
I love that so much. So I actually have had many clients over the years who are dare to lead facilitators. So they're the
Okay,
people who bring this into the boardroom.
love
They
it.
are the consultants who work with, some of them work with the educators primarily, but most of them work in corporate or NGOs, and some work in law enforcement, like other areas. So it's penetrating the almost least likely places, right? If you think about law enforcement, you don't think about being vulnerable. I mean, you think about being vulnerable in terms of wearing a bulletproof vest, but you don't think about being emotionally vulnerable. But the angels love this conversation so much because we are in a time where change is happening so fast, we can't begin to predict what the world is going to be like 5 years from now. Certainly, so
Five
many departments are doing 5-year plans, right? And doing budgeting. And they're not saying stop doing that, but they are saying, do it with a huge grain of salt, a salt lick, a big bag. So, because We don't know which way things are going to go from our ground level perspective. That is one of the reasons they encourage us to bring our divine guidance into the workplace because we can start to sense go this way, not that way, right? Try more of this, less of that. But also, vulnerability the dial has been turned up on vulnerability because we need to stop doing business the way we used to, where the person at the top had the answers and it sort of filtered down to various levels of management. And you had to go ask your manager, what should I do about this? There's no time for that anymore. One of the things that the angels and I are here to do is help move decision making further down so that the boots on the ground can, who know what's happening in their day to day, can have more agency, can have more potency, can do because people want to help the customer, right? They want to do
Right.
what's right. They want to not sell something that's got a problem. Vulnerability is the creating of space for I don't know in the way that we see it. It's the creating space for us to ask, okay, so we launched this product and it didn't sell the way we expected. That was most unexpected. What do you think happened there? What did you see? What did you hear? As we start to bring these other voices into the conversation, we get all these different perspectives that sooner in the conversation we bring them to the table, the more we can avoid the unintended consequences. You know, the angel's favorite example is when General Motors began to sell the Chevrolet Nova in Mexico. And Nova in Spanish means it doesn't go, and nobody wanted to buy a car that doesn't go, right? So
Wow.
imagine if they had just asked a few people, maybe some of their dealers in Mexico, I don't know, crazy idea, what they thought of this new car. They would have said that name is never going to work. And that could have saved tens, hundreds of thousands of dollars. The angels love giving leaders permission to not know, to lead with questions, to lean into what do the people around me know? What else am I not seeing? Right? What else is possible? And, in the avoiding problems way, but also in the what else is possible? Like, who else would benefit from this product that we never thought would use it? There have been so many mistakes that we know, like post it notes were the world's worst glue, right? So the more we begin to welcome other viewpoints, other experience, other knowings, sensings, and even creating space in whether it doesn't matter whether it's in a parenting situation or a workplace situation or, an intimate partnership. When we create that space for, I don't know, what do you think? What do you feel? I'm feeling triggered right now. Or this meeting is escalating, right? Voices are climbing. We can tell that people are getting hot under the collar. Why don't we pause for a second and center? And then we can decide if we want to continue this conversation today or if we need to table it and all cool off and, come back tomorrow and revisit it. But as we start to give space for trauma triggers, for emotions, for confusion, we begin to create workplaces that are more nurturing and that are going to be much more successful.
I agree with all of that. Sometimes the vulnerability can feel like the flavor of the month. We're going to bring this in, we're going to inject it. Once that uncomfortableness comes in, it doesn't really get its due and move forward. The big picture makes sense to me. So I've worked in healthcare forever. I remember we went through a period where, there's a lot of healthcare malpractice that goes on. We'll say that maybe physicians or people in those roles have a hard time acknowledging that. So there was a lot of training at one point, and there was actually some really good research on it when the physician sat down and admitted that they had made a mistake, maybe didn't do something right, and there was a bad outcome, that there was a lot less lawsuits because people appreciated the transparency and the honesty. It took hold for a while, and then that all went by the wayside. So, having been in these different industries and these workspaces, a lot of times this feels like this is the flavor of the month. Yeah, we're all in. This is exciting. But then it never really gets the traction that it's due. How do we move this from that more theory or superficial level into something that really starts having traction? You brought up the trauma aware approach has now that seems to have really taken traction everywhere. But what are your thoughts on that?
Well, so I'm glad you asked. 'Cause we're actually going to be launching a group for leaders called Harmonious Leadership. What the angels say is the essential piece of it, and it's actually the last chapter in the book. So it is the essential piece for everything, is inner harmony. When I notice that I'm in inner harmony, excellent. When I notice that I'm feeling turbulence of any kind, step one is to address that. Imagine taking this into the workplace. So I'm the CEO and I notice, wow, I am really feeling a lot of turbulence right now. Give me a second. I'm going to close my eyes and take 3 deep breaths. I'm going to recenter myself. I'm going to tune in. Okay. All right. I'm present again. Like I bring myself back. When I notice trauma in my team, I give them permission to pause and recenter themselves. Okay. So I, as a leader, really feel like I need to have the answers. Not unusual. We've been conditioned, we've been programmed from preschool that when the teacher asks a question, we have to have the answer. And it has to be the answer that teacher wants. I remember like in second grade, they taught us, to use commas, of course, we're starting to write, use punctuation. And my teacher said A, comma, B, comma, and C. But then in third grade, the teacher said, you don't use that second comma. It's A, comma, B, and C. And I was, 7 or 8 years old. And I was like, wow, you people just make up these rules. Good to know. All right. So we're taught to have that answer, but we also are trying to please the person in front of us. We want to have the answer they want. And our parents are certainly in reinforcing that. So one of the things that we've had to do over and over is start to dissolve that need to know within people, right? So knowing is very limiting, it turns out. When I know, I'm not asking questions. I'm not looking for options. I'm not considering the infinite possibilities that exist. The more I can get used to not knowing and comfortable living in the space of not knowing, the more the angels can surprise and delight me with amazing unfoldings that I never would have thought to ask for or that I never would have given myself that choice. As we tune into our harmony, inner harmony or not harmony, and we attend to that, and then we notice, okay, I have this thought, belief. What else is possible? Or is that true? Or is that even mine? Right? Where did that come from? Is it mine is one of my favorite questions also for empaths and sensitive beings because we pick up so much stuff that's not ours. And even if you don't consider yourself sensitive or an empath, I guarantee you, you pick up a lot of stuff that's not yours.
Right.
So is it mine? If you feel lighter, it wasn't yours to begin with. So the angels will start to pull that out of your space and you can just thank them for taking it away. Thank you, angels, for dissolving whatever that was. Because it's so hard to heal stuff that's not ours. And if you're trying to look for why do I have that thought, well, you could be digging forever.
That you can in probably lifetimes. So it's really staying fluid. I love that knowing is limiting. That really struck a chord with me. But what you know now may not be what you know tomorrow. What the truth is in the moment may not be my truth tomorrow. It's always very fluid. It's really staying open. Well, those are my big things, staying open and curious to what's out there. So we
So they,
can know in the moment, but we're okay with being open to what I know this moment may not be my truth in the next moment. And that's not being wishy-washy. That's being legitimate
yes, because the world is changing, right? So
massively.
I may know that I am in the perfect job right now. But tomorrow there may be a new company that would be even better for me that I would just absolutely love. But that wasn't my truth yesterday because that company didn't exist yet. Right. So the more we stay open, curious, receptive,
Yeah.
and just tune into our guidance, the more we can be on this peaceful, easeful, joyful, playful even journey. Foundational teaching is really notice how I'm feeling. If I'm feeling off, soothe myself, tune into my guidance. Is there something for me to do or say right now?
And I do think that play is not getting enough attention. Playful is really important. But so let's shift a little bit here. You were guided to stop your private coaching, which you did for 20 years, and move your work into this book format that you have right now. That's a really big shift and change. Why was that shift important?
There was only so much I could do one on one with people. And that's probably why most of my clients were coaches and consultants and healers, because each of them went off and affected lots of other people. And I worked with a fair number of business owners and CEOs too. So they affected, hundreds, thousands of people each, which was super gratifying. And there's so much readiness now. One could say need. It's time. It's time for the message to get out to a lot more people. And coaching is expensive, and not everybody has the money or the
Right.
time or the inclination. A book is way less expensive. You have it available 24/7. If you wake up in the middle of the night upset about something, close your eyes, let it open to a random page, and you'll get your answer from the angels. It was a way to give back because I've had a very wonderful life. Thank you, angels. And it was a way to reach a lot more people and provide tools, the tools that we know from 20 years of working with all kinds of different people, that these are the tools that work. These tools make it easier, life easier. They work when you feel angry, they work when you feel despair, they work when you feel bliss. We wanted to make a bigger difference.
That's great. It's more available to more people because I feel like more people are looking right now, and I think that that number that I'm being pulled to something I don't understand is gonna grow exponentially. It's nice that the book is available. How do you help people use your work as empowerment rather than becoming dependent on external guidance?
A big chunk of the book is about receiving your own guidance. So I had opened to that angel attunement that was yummy or yucky. That's part
Mhm.
of the receiving your guidance section because so much of our guidance comes through our body. We've been taught to not really pay attention to our body by a lot of people who wanted us to do things that our body was saying, no, I don't want to do that. The short answer is by listening to your own guidance and noticing what's happening in your system, right? Am I feeling harmony or turbulence? Is my body saying yes or no? And yes often feels like yummy and no feels like yucky, or yes might feel like, oh, the weight of the world is on my shoulders and I just curved in on myself. You may even want to get in bed and pull the covers over your head. Like that's a clue. Or somebody may say something and you instantly go, oh, like that is your guidance. The more we just notice what's going on in my system, am I feeling triggered? Am I feeling upset? Am I feeling yuck? That's how we navigate reality. And the good news is it's with us 24/7 and it's free.
2 really big, important things. It's with us and it's free. You talked a lot about journaling. What are some other simple daily practices that might help someone create some noticeable shifts in their life?
So one of our favorites we mentioned also is closing your eyes and taking 3 deep breaths. And the angels wanted to go there because it affects our physiology. When you're running from the saber-toothed tiger, right, the primitive part of your brain is like, oh my God, we're under attack. And that's the fight or flight response. When you're running from the saber-toothed tiger, you cannot close your eyes and take 3 deep breaths.
Right.
So your entire physiology knows it was a false alarm and it begins to turn down the stress signals. It begins to stop the flow of cortisol and it starts to send the rest and digest hormones so your body can repair cells. It's beneficial on so many levels. It will bring down the level of anxiety, that hypervigilance that so many people are living with right now. This simple practice, again, free and available to you anytime. The angels recommend doing it every hour on the hour or every 5 minutes if you're feeling stressed. It will help your sleep. It will help your digestion. It will help your interpersonal relationships. It's good for everything. Super easy and free practice.
Okay, I'm going to ask another question that's similar, but I'm
Okay.
curious if you answer it differently. I feel like there's a ton of noise in the spiritual space right now. How can people stay grounded while exploring guidance like what you're offering?
Uh,
Use their discernment.
mm. Well, they actually want to give you one of our favorite tools, which is higher
Okay.
perspective. They want to say that turbulence happens at the ground level of reality, right? We're in the middle of whatever's going on. We just had that argument, or we just got that bill, or whatever it is. We're at the ground level. We can only see so much. The angels guide us to lift up to higher perspective. So you just pretend you're sitting in an airplane that's on the runway and it's about to take off. And we know as it's going faster and faster and faster, it starts to get really noisy and everything's shaking, and maybe the overhead compartment pops open, and you look out the window and everything's going. And it's like, just feels awful. That's the ground level turbulence that we're talking about.
Okay.
But the second that plane lifts off, we feel so much more peaceful. And you look out the window, and all the little houses and cars are so cute. They're like little matchbox cars. And then you can get up above the clouds and you can have that level of peace. I, Nothing makes me happier than getting up above the clouds in an airplane. It's like, oh, it's so beautiful up here. So the angels want us to use that, right? Just let them take us up there. It's very visceral. In an instant, you can feel your nervous system begin to relax, and they can show you a higher perspective of whatever is going on. Whatever it may be, oftentimes whatever is causing our turbulence is we're seeing somebody else's woundedness. They're just showing us their sore spots, right? I'm terrified that because X happened to me when I was a child, we don't need to know why they feel that way. But they're being controlling or manipulative or dominating or needy and clingy or whatever it is. The more we can get in that higher perspective space, we can go, oh, you're doing your trauma dance. Oh, okay. And then we can feel compassion. Now, we may say no thank you to whatever it is they were trying to sell us, or, to going on another date with that person. But it's easy, and it comes from a very different space when we attend to ourselves first like that. Notice that I'm feeling turbulence. I rise to a higher perspective. Okay, I can see what's going on with you. In fact, you remind me of that person who cheated me 20 years ago. The angels just showed me a picture of that person. That's your guidance also. So I'm going to say no thank you to you. I can see that what's going on has nothing to do with me. That's all your stuff. I'm just going to say no thank you. Go on my merry way.
Thank you for that. So, for you, with over 20 years of doing this work, what has changed most in your understanding of guidance?
Oh gosh. That we don't have to do anything special to receive it. You don't have to go into meditation. You don't have to be a monk in a cave. Whatever you're doing, however you're feeling, your guidance is coming to you. Now, if you are in a traumatic situation, your guidance is going to sound very different than if you're blissed out, right? It's
Right.
probably going to sound like turn left right now, shut that door, go over the wall. It's going to be much more concerned with your physical safety, but you are always getting guidance. The journey has been learning to listen to it and remembering to tune in and not try and figure things out. I call myself a recovering intellectual because I was very much all about figuring it out between my ears, like what should I do and what would happen if that happens, and scenario planning and pros and cons and weighing decisions, and the angels want to say, if your guidance says no right now, but tomorrow it's yes, they'll tell you. We don't have to figure it all out. We don't have to make life so complicated and difficult and stressful. We just get to show up and ask.
Well, that being a recovering intellectual, I think, is a huge barrier for most people. They really are caught up in their head. Any tips on getting out of that in the moment?
I think that's why so much of these teachings came through me, right? Because it's noticing your body. I was brought up that the body was a vehicle to move the brain from place to place, right? So getting into my body has been an adventure. It's as simple as noticing how the body is feeling right now. Again, you could set a timer on your phone every hour, just tune into your body.
Well, there's so much right now on nervous system regulation, nervous system reset that actually all links in very nicely. And it's fascinating that all of these things are really coming to the top now. There's just so much information and tools available to help people with that. Over the last, 6 months, that whole area of work has really taken off.
Yes. And the angels want to add there's been a lot done in the area of trauma recovery.
Yeah.
If you feel like something in that area would be beneficial for you, and I'm sure you just got a yes or a no on that, tune into what your body would like. There are a
Mm,
lot of somatic practices. I've done trauma releasing exercise. You don't have
okay.
to know what the trauma is, it just allows your body to release all the stuck stuff. So the angels are encouraging us. And sometimes it can be as simple, again, as shaking, right?
Yeah.
When an animal in the wild escapes from a predator, it shakes it off. It shakes from head to toe, and that resets its nervous system. But humans will do that until we're taught that that looks weird or that scared
Okay.
mom or we shouldn't, so we stop doing it. But you can literally get up and shake. If you feel like you have a lot of anger built up in your system, you can get up and listen to angry music and get it out of your
Yeah.
system. If you have a lot of
Yeah.
sadness, watch a tearjerker movie. Like there are many things that we can do to support ourselves on the journey that are very simple and grounded.
I did not know that about animals. I am curious, though, was there ever anything that the angels have told you that challenged your own beliefs?
I'm sure there must have been. Let's see. I think most of it was related to feeling small and scared and separate. So the angels really reinforced that we're always connected to the divine. We can't disconnect. We can feel disconnected, but we can't disconnect. If we're still alive, we have that
Yeah.
source energy flowing through us. In those moments where we feel small, scared, separate, unable to make a difference on the things that are a big deal to us, they encourage us to remember that we're connected to everyone and everything. And that one of us who remembers that is more powerful than millions who don't remember.
Ooh, that's a
As we,
powerful message.
Mhm. For those of you who want scientific research, look up studies on meditators affecting the crime rate in a city
Oh, yeah,
or
I've
people focusing their loving energy on a polluted body of water, some of Dr. Masaru Emoto's work. Our intention and our focus is incredibly powerful. And they're encouraging us also to connect with others who are in this space. So many of us are surrounded by people who don't believe these things or explicitly are skeptical or even derisive of these things. They're encouraging us to come together with those because a few of us gathered can affect so much by sending love, by being love for one another, by being peace or joy, whatever it is that you feel inspired to embody. It makes a difference.
I've read a lot of that research that you were talking about, especially with the crime and, some of Dr. Emoto's work. It really is very legit. Other thing that I find interesting is and it just could be because that's where my focus is, but it feels like there's more and more groups that are available that are getting together for meditation, prayer, just sitting, being present, focusing either on healing, raising the vibration of the earth or whatever. And because of the internet and our technological advances, right now, these small groups are literally small global groups that are shifting and make a difference. And it feels to me like there's more and more of them. That could be true or not true. That could just be because I'm more focused on that and that's more my awareness now because it's more important to me. But it goes back to what we said before. They're there, it's free, it's available.
Yes. And there are more and more groups, and there are more and more people experiencing spontaneous awakening. My
Oh, definitely.
therapist and healer friends are saying people are coming in, teenagers are coming in and they have no idea what's happening. And there is a huge groundswell. And the more that we come together, it's really a time for collaboration and connection to know that we're not alone in physical, right? We know we're connected to the divine, but sometimes
Yeah.
it's really helpful to have someone to hug also.
Yeah, I would agree, and it really, again, adds to the value of the book that you have put together. So, Sue, for someone who resonates with your work and wants to go deeper, what are the best ways for them to connect with what you're offering right now?
Well, everything is available on the website, which is myangelcoach.com. You can find the book there. We are about to release a set of audios about money and abundance, if that's the area that you would like some support in. We'll be doing some retreats coming up. And we do have a gift. We have an audio called Soothing Energy from the Angels. It's about an 8-minute energetic reset that will help with your nervous system, or if you're about to go on a job interview or a first date or whatever has you a little twitchy. It's a lovely support. And you can find that at myangelcoach.com/soothing.
Very important tools. I'll make sure that I include that in the show notes. I would guess that we probably shouldn't listen to that when we're driving.
No, it's probably gonna be a little too
May
relaxing, and then you
Maybe
do
in the parking lot before we go in for the interview.
exactly. That would be
Okay.
perfect. Get there a little early so that you're not all frazzled from the drive.
There you
Yes.
go. I have a couple more questions as we're winding down today. If someone listening right now feels disconnected, overwhelmed, what would the angels want them to know in this moment?
So the angels want all of us to know that they're always with us, always. And we are so loved unconditionally. It doesn't matter what we've done or not done, said or not said. The angels love us no matter what, and the divine loves us no matter what. The angels want you to feel held by them. They want you to know that they are bringing everything you've ever wanted. If you would like their help, they would love for you to delegate to them. Rather than asking or praying in sort of the normal way, the angels encourage us to say, "Thank you, angels, for taking care of," and then you fill in the blank. "Thank you, angels, for taking care of my body. Thank you, angels, for taking care of my children. Thank you, angels, for taking care of my bills." They want you to play with that so that you can feel better in the moment, first of all. One of the reasons they encourage us to say it that way is because it acknowledges that the angels are on it. Thank you for taking care of comes from a place of they're taking care of it. So they want us to acknowledge that the angels are with us and helping us. That helps us feel better in the moment. And if you say it and you don't feel better yet, they want you to just play with the words, maybe go a little bit more general. Thank you for the $323 to pay the heat bill is not as general as thank you for taking care of my bills or thank you for taking care of money. When you feel lighter or feel relief, then you know that it's helping you and that the angels are well aware always of what it is that would be supportive for you. The angels will also want to add a piece that's brand new. And this did challenge one of my beliefs. They said, a lot of times we use it as evidence to beat ourselves up that we have lack consciousness when every time I get a little extra money, then a bill shows up. The angels want to tell us it's the other way around. They know the bill's going to show up, so they bring the money in advance. So if you've been taught that you have a leak in your bucket and that that's a sign of it, they want to tell you that it's time to start telling yourself a more loving and nurturing and empowering story, which is I have lots of evidence that every time I'm getting an unexpected bill, the money to pay the bill shows up, often before the bill even shows up. So they want us to begin to notice this as a sign of how supported we are, how taken care of we are, and that we don't have to figure out where it's going to come from, how I'm going to get it. We can soothe ourselves, comfort ourselves in the moment, and ask the angels, is there something for me to do or say right now? Or if you want to be a little more specific, is there something I could do to allow money to come in? Is there something I could sell to allow money to come in? And the angels will pop it into your awareness. Maybe not in that exact instant, but it could be that 5 minutes from now, somebody says, wow, I could really use some help with. And you're like, oh, I know exactly how to do that. And the angels want to add to bring it for full circle. They bring us experiences so that we can learn things, so that we can teach those things to others. When you are a natural at something, when you are a prodigy at something, you're not a good teacher. But when you've had to learn it yourself, and maybe you've tried 27 different ways to do it, you're a really good teacher. You can notice that somebody's having trouble with method number 1, and you can go, well, let's try method number 7. So they want us to know that this nonlinear journey and the try again stuff was never wrong. It simply makes us the right tool for the job, the earth angel who can help somebody with something. And the angels will bring those people to us.
Wow, that was really meaningful and powerful. Last question. What is the most important thing we didn't talk about today?
Oh, gosh. So the angels want us to let go of needing things to happen a certain way. For example, let's say somebody borrowed money from you 20 years ago and you're still mad at them for not paying that money back. If you can let go of the money needing to come from that person, then the angels could bring you the money from a gazillion different directions. If we could let go of needing the money to come through a job, then we could get free things, or we could get trades, right? Somebody could say, oh, you want a massage? I'll give you that in exchange for coaching, right?
Yeah.
The more we let go of expectations, especially really specific things like so-and-so needs to apologize, the more we live in the more general intentions. Thank you, angels, for bringing me more joy. Thank you, angels, for bringing me more ease. Thank you, angels, for bringing me more peace. The more carte blanche, the more permission we're giving to the angels to deliver things in ways that will surprise and delight us. And they love to surprise and delight us. And because they can see the big picture, right? They have the highest perspective. They can bring us things that we never could have imagined to ask for. So if we can approach life with less preconception, less demand that it unfold a certain way, the more permission they have and the more freedom they have to bring us magic and miracles every day. And that's really what they would like life to feel like for us. Like they're rolling out the red carpet in front of us. Yes, one door closed, but look, 47 doors just opened. We're not sure which one to go in, so they'll make one of them really bright in neon. They will help us with every decision from the most mundane to the most important in our lives. They just want us to ask. Thank you, angels, for taking care of all my decisions.
Magic and miracles. What a way to end the show. Thank you for joining us today, Sue. And I want to thank all the angels that have been with us. This has truly been an insightful and powerful conversation. For our listeners, take a moment after the conversation and notice what resonated. Not what sounded good, but what actually felt true to you. To learn more about what's happening and being offered on Wild Soul Gatherings, you can go to wildsoulsgathering.com. Thank you all for joining today. Remember, stay curious. Until next time. Thanks, Sue.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Wild Soul Gatherings Happy Hour for the Spiritually Curious. To learn more about our guests, please go to our website, wildsoulsgathering.com. We're very eager to hear from our listeners what you thought of the episode, topics you might like us to cover in the future, your thoughts on spirituality, questions you may have. Please feel free to send us an email at wildsoulsgathering@gmail.com. This is your host, Dr. Sandra Marie, sending each of you peace and love. Until we meet again, embrace your wild soul.